Hi, I'm Kari.
And I'm Kimberly, and this is Coffee and Cocoa, a podcast about reconstructing your family after they've deconstructed their faith.
We are a mother and a daughter having conversations from both sides of the faith divide. So,
Awesome.
what do you want to bear your testimony about today?
One Direction.
Yeah?
Yeah, I know that we're talking today about some of my past loves, and I did love One Direction for a really long time. Like, I was obsessed with them, and I just met a new friend, and we were talking, and she was like, "Wait, were you a Directioner?" And I was like, "I was a Directioner." And I just love that, like, all these years later, I'm sure it's the same for like people that were like fans of the Backstreet Boys, things like that. But it's just so fun that all these years later we're like, oh yeah, I also watched The Adventures of One Direction, the YouTube video, and I also am watching, you know, Harry Styles and Louis Tomlinson compilations and stuff like that. So it's just fun. I love those connection points.
That is fun. I think I'm going to bear my testimony about community theater because our community theater is doing Into the Woods right now, and I just finished building the set for it, which was so much work, so much work. And I did have a lot of help painting and stuff like that, so I appreciate that, but it was still so much work. And your little sister is playing Rapunzel in it, and that's kind of fun too. But there's been a lot of drama and a lot of, kind of ups and downs about the whole thing. And I think it's so interesting because from my point of view, that's the work of being human, right? Is
Yeah.
learning to work with other humans and care about and accomplish something good in concert with people that you don't always like and you don't always agree with and building relationships that way. And so I think that community theater is really a cool thing to be a part of, and I need a break from it for a while because we've been doing a lot lately. But it's been a good experience, I think, in a lot of ways for our family too. You always participated
Hmm.
in community theater, right, when you lived
Yeah.
here, and I think I think it can be really a good thing for both the participants and the community. So,
Yeah. And I like that too. I think that's something that I realized as I've gotten older and I've been finding my own communities is that I don't know. I think when I was younger, everyone was like, oh, I hate drama and we need to, not have so much drama and blah, blah, blah. But like a perfect community is not one without drama. It is one where we accept drama as human nature and we also accept that we're going to get past the dramas and we're going to resolve these
yeah.
issues. Every good community I have been a part of has had people get offended or people feel like they're working too much or people feel like things are unfair or these are just our human things that we pick up
Uh-huh.
and it doesn't make the community not worth having. The
Yeah.
second part of our human nature is that we develop past the drama and we resolve these feelings or we let the feelings go or we move on and decide, you know what, I was offended. Maybe I'm mad at this person for a year and then we get over it,
Yeah.
or maybe that person's not my best friend anymore, but we're both in this community and I'm
Right.
going to accept our differences.
Yeah. And I just think that that's really, really good for us as human beings
Yeah.
because that's how we grow. That's how we learn to love people, or how we learn to love better, is
Hmm.
by loving people that are hard to love sometimes.
And I think when I accept that I still really enjoy the company of and love people that do things that I'm not the biggest fan of, or do things
Hmm.
that offend me, or things like that, it makes it easier for me to love myself
Yes.
because I'm not always my biggest fan
Hmm.
and I'm stuck with myself,
Yeah, that is so real, isn't it?
Yeah.
Recognizing that you cannot be perfect and still be lovable.
Yeah. That was actually my shower thought of the day because I had a really good night last night with some girlfriends and I was like, wow, everywhere I've been able to find a good group of people that I really like. And I had a moment where I was like, that's because you're likable. Like I really
Yeah.
am harsh on myself and all of the
Hmm.
reasons someone might not want to be my friend or where I'm feeling as a friend or things like that. But yeah, I do feel like I
Yeah.
can be loving and I can love myself and I am worthy of community and I don't
I
know.
love
It's good to
that.
have those moments.
I'm so glad. Yeah, that makes me happy.
And it's like, "Ugh, you are the common denominator here. Give yourself some credit."
Give yourself some credit. And that, yeah, it's so hard to do. So I'm glad that you're learning that because I still struggle with
Well,
that.
I don't think there's an end point. I think that there's
Yeah,
like,
ups and
but
downs.
I know where this is going on, but I saw a TikTok that was like my insecurities when I was 13, and it was like, oh, I said that word really weird, or I look really weird in these jeans, or things like that. And then my insecurities at 30, and it's like, am I showing up as the best friend I can be to this friend? Or like, did I forget to tell them thank you? Or things like
Right.
that. And I'm like, okay, do you know what? I'd much rather be in this like self-actualized place.
Even though it's still the same place. I'm like,
At
not,
least I'm worried about things that matter.
yes, yes, 100%.
And it'll always be ongoing, but I hope that the things that I'm self-aware of are, am I being kind to others and not, did I
Yeah,
say that thing weird?
yeah. I still sometimes worry that I say something's weird. I still do
Yeah,
say
now,
things weird. Let's be
yeah.
honest.
And now we're recording ourselves, so
I
that's just making it
know.
worse.
Okay, so today I wanted to talk about like the intersection of the queer community with the church and
Hmm.
like particular like where it's come up pretty obviously with some fairly famous LDS people that have come out as gay. And the one that came up this week is David Archuleta because his memoir just came out. And by the time this comes out, it will have been a minute. But about his coming out, coming to terms with
Yeah,
his sexuality, and then ultimately leaving the church over it.
yeah. And I think
And
just starting out, we
uh-huh,
should put a disclaimer that we are two women in heteronormative relationships
right.
who don't experience gender queerness. Talking about this, we are not the experts on this. I think that the point of this is just to discuss what we've seen, what that looks like, and how it's affected the people in our lives.
Yes, and how it's affected our lives, right? Because
Yeah.
particularly how my mind has changed so much over the years. Like I don't think that you
Hmm.
so much had a real conversion experience or anything like that because as you were growing up, you had friends that were queer and
Hmm.
that was and they just seemed very normal to you.
I think that because we lived in a very conservative town, I caught like the tail end of
Hmm.
like having weird feelings around it. I think
Mm,
that like I definitely felt pressured to like when my friends came out, like I wanted to support them and wanted to feel like that was okay. And then I felt this every member of missionary pressure to be like,
mm,
you don't have to be, or things like that. Or I remember there was like a lot of weirdness of a queer woman like 2 or 3 grades ahead of me. Actually, I think she may have graduated high school and I was in 8th grade. But she was transitioning to a woman, and I remember
mm,
like she was on the cheer team for a little bit, and then they wouldn't let her wear like a
mm.
regular cheer uniform. They wanted her to wear the men's cheer uniform, and I remember she was well known in the
Yeah.
community for being the weird one.
Yeah, interesting. I hadn't thought about that in a long time, but I do remember her. Um,
Hmm.
very brave of her
I
looking
know. I
back.
wonder what she's doing now. I don't know
Yeah.
because I didn't know her personally, and that's crazy. I didn't know her or her family, but I absolutely could spot her
Uh-huh.
like out in town, like because it was such a big deal to everyone.
Yeah.
But yeah, so brave. I hope she's thriving now.
I do too. Oh my gosh, I do too. Yeah. So, I mean, because I never knew anybody growing up. Well, that's not true
No, you had a
because
friend, right?
I had a dear friend in high school who just was one of my very, very best friends. He wasn't out of the closet. He didn't talk about being gay. He came out to me a couple of years past high school.
Hmm.
But clearly there was something different about him, right? He was a little bit effeminate. He was a little bit, is that a bad word? Effeminate?
No.
Okay. And he was just different. He was very flamboyant and it
Hmm.
just and so much fun. He was just such a dear friend. And we had such a good time together always and I really loved being around him and he but he wasn't out of the closet or didn't talk about being attracted to men. So I was aware of like this is a thing,
Hmm.
but it also was very like the entire queer community was pretty closeted, right? It was just not a thing that people talked about.
Well, you graduated in 1990, right?
91. Yeah.
91. Sorry, didn't mean to age you there.
Rude.
That's like well into like LGBTQ rights throughout America. Like here in New York, I
Right.
think that that was alive and well.
Sure.
And that's
And
also
like,
beginning of or middle of the AIDS pandemic. I don't know my queer history well enough.
it was AIDS pandemic was kind of coming down.
Hmm.
The AIDS pandemic was more in the mid to late 80s, but I'm sure
So,
it was still going on. So we'd been through that kind of thing.
hmm.
Anyways, so he was just a dear friend of mine, and he came out to me a couple of years past. And I remember, like, well, what I remember at the time was feeling guilty that I hadn't shared the church with him when we were in high school, right? That I hadn't been a better missionary, and then maybe he wouldn't have been gay. And like looking back now, that's really a ridiculous assumption or whatever. But so watching him on social media, because when did we get Facebook?
We got it around like 2008.
So there were a good 10 years in there that I didn't know where he was or what he was doing or anything like that. And he moved to San Francisco, which,
Love that.
is kind of iconic for the age or whatever, right? Because that was where all of the gay people were, was in San Francisco. And so, like 10 years before we got in touch ever again. And then when Facebook came out, I can't remember exactly when we reconnected on that. And still we were living very, very different lives, right? Because he was living as
Hmm.
a gay man in San Francisco, and I was living here in Elko, raising my very Mormon family, but
Yeah.
still kind of connected. And I hope everything is well for you. I hope things are going good. And it's just been interesting to watch him over the years. So I guess that he definitely is part of my experience with queer people. But anyways, like I've known different queer people throughout my life, and that's always been kind of one of those things that I was just like, how does this work, right? Like how does this work with the church? And always been very confused by it, but not
Hmm.
confused to the point that it dramatically affected my life personally, right? Which
Well,
is,
and also, like you said, like you were married to a man.
mhm,
None of your kids were like getting to the point where we're having sexuality of any kind. I feel like you didn't really have to address it yet. You
right.
could look at other people address it and be like, okay, that's happening over there, and I don't really
Hmm.
understand it. But until you have to make a choice for yourself about how am I going to parent my child through this, or how am I going to deal with my own feelings on this, like it's like anything like we've said about like leaving the church, like you don't question the things that are already in line with your life already or
Yeah,
aren't
that are
pushing
just
up
working
against your
for you.
life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, again, like very privileged position, right?
Mhm.
I don't have to deal with this, and so I'm not dealing with this.
Yeah.
And that's one of the ways that I can see privilege in my life, or one of the ways that I first started to see privilege in my life was like, oh, this is really painful for some people, but not for me because it's
Hmm.
not my issue, right?
Yeah.
I just think that's important because people get really defensive about the word privilege, and that's what it is, right? It's just not a problem that I have to deal with.
Yeah. Like I don't have that additional friction.
Yeah, it's not that I don't have problems, but I don't have that problem. And so I don't have
Yes.
to exert effort to resolve that or anything.
Yeah. And I also think there's something to be said about it's a lot easier to make your opinions about the queer community when you're not the one with family members who are
Oh,
queer, or
yeah.
you aren't the one that are having that feeling. I think that a lot of people are like, nope, this is how it should be, and
Hmm.
expect other people to follow that, even though they have different feelings than them. And then I think
Yes.
from like kind of the position you and I took when I was in the church and when before was more, well, however they feel about it, they're going to deal with it that way.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
like I'm going to handle my relationship with God my way. And, I'm sure
Yeah.
that's hard for them, but they're going to handle it on their end.
So one of the first ways that I really, because I started to be concerned that one of my children was queer, right? And that brought up a lot of panic in me because I hadn't dealt with it at all, and had just kind of let it be somebody else's problem for so long. And yeah, it was a very panicky situation for me. So I started really studying about it, and I found a video that was done by John DeLynn, and he wasn't very well known at that time. I don't know if
He's
he's probably not. I would say that the vast majority of the church is not very aware of who John DeLynn is either.
really,
Yeah, I mean, everybody that's left the church knows who he is. Maybe
I
not.
feel like when I've heard not every Mormon, but a lot of like true believing Mormons, they treat it the same as like anti-Mormon literature, like it's a
Yeah,
curse word.
right, right. And so if I had known, if it had been the situation that it is now, I probably would have not
Not
looked at it,
listen.
not listened
Yeah.
to it. But where it was, he hadn't been excommunicated yet. I didn't know anything about him when I found this
Yeah.
video,
Except that he was Mormon, right?
except that he was Mormon. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, anyways, he put out this video, and I tried to find it before I got on here to show it to you, but it was so
Hmm.
beautiful. It was him and several other LDS people, and
Hmm.
they were just talking to the gay community and just saying, "We love you. Like, we don't
Hmm.
understand what's going on yet, but we love you so much.
Hmm.
And we think you're beautiful people. We see the good in you, all of this stuff." And it was really just, it was affirming to me because it was like, okay, it's okay for me to love them. It's okay
Hmm.
for me to see the good in these people. And that
Hmm.
doesn't sound like it should be a revelatory
Controversial
thing.
statement.
Yeah, it like from where I'm at now, it's like, okay,
Yeah.
that's silly.
You're
But
like,
at the time
duh.
it kind of was. It kind of was to me because it was just like I knew that it was a sin, right? And I knew that it was contrary to the will of God and all of that kind of stuff from the
Hmm.
church's point of view. But I didn't know how to deal with that, right? And on all of this time, I had we hadn't been close, this friend from high school and
Hmm.
I, but we hadn't been close, but we had kept in touch. And I'd always kind
Hmm.
of felt like, ooh, is that okay? But I loved him, right? He was my good friend,
Yeah.
and I was interested in what was happening in his life, and I had always felt like, oh, maybe that's not what I should be doing there, right?
Yeah.
So interesting. So I saw this video, and that just kind of set me on this path of, you know what, there is something going on here because I learned a lot about other people who were gay in the church and how they dealt with it. And
Hmm.
there was also a group called the Mama Dragons. It was an LDS based group, but it was mothers
Hmm.
of queer children fighting for a place for them in the church and fighting for
Hmm.
some openness around it, and just realizing like this is a problem. It's not that they're sinning, it's not that they're bad people, it's not that they're trying to rebel against God or anything like that. It's that this is a deep part of them that
Hmm.
they can't reconcile,
Hmm.
right? That they can't just be the way that the church says that they should be.
Well, and I think that it really like conflicts with old-fashioned views that there's some sort of perversion in it. And it's
Yeah,
like, okay, how are you going to tell me my 9-year-old is just feeling this way because he's perverse, you know?
right, right. Well, and then there was one particular story that was just really interesting about a mom in California, and they had the whole Prop 8 thing in California, which
Hmm.
Prop 8, they were trying to legalize gay marriage, and the church came out hard on that.
Hmm. I
They
remember
had
that.
people canvassing neighborhoods with literature. They had people protesting, people from the church. This was an assignment from the church that you were to come out and campaign against this.
Crazy that they don't pay taxes. Sorry.
So this mom, while that was going on, and their family was all involved in it, and then her son came out during this time, and she was like, I've been fighting against this, and this is my
Hmm.
child. This is my right?
Hmm.
And he was very young, but The stories that I read just became very clear that what happened was kids would start to feel this way in the church, and their first reaction always is like double down. I'm going to go to church harder. I'm going to be the perfect Mormon and God will change me.
Well, and I think what we're both talking about is a, I guess, eternal truth that I have found is that all of these very old-fashioned arguments around queer people dissolve the minute that you have someone close to you that you love that is
That you
queer.
know and love, that is such a good person
Hmm.
and is
And
trying
like, yeah,
to
because
do
I've seen
right.
people who are very anti-trans until someone they love is trans.
Hmm.
And then you have to, and I do think that it causes a lot of harm. Like I do think in the story that you told, like you have to sit there and be like, wow, I have been hating people that are like this person that I love, and I have been
Yeah.
doing damaging things. Um,
I've
but
been
yeah, like I,
saying things that are hurting this person with.
and to me, if there was any eternal truth, if there was any like, omniscient truth
Hmm.
to the anti-queer beliefs,
Hmm.
they would have more hold. They would be able to hold up better than the minute I know someone that I love that is queer. These truths are not holding up for me.
Yeah.
These things, these long held beliefs or old beliefs about it being a choice or being it being a perversion or things like that are starting to dwindle.
Yeah. Yeah. It really has been interesting to me to see how my mind and my heart have changed about it, because this is the thing, is that there are queer people who still really want to be part of the church, who still really
Mhm.
fight to be part of the church.
Mhm.
Why do they do that? Why is that so important to them still?
Mhm.
So Charlie Bird was he was the mascot at BYU, and he won
Mhm.
some major competitions and stuff. You can watch all these really cute videos of Cosmo the
Mhm.
Cougar doing all these great dances with the cheerleaders, and very athletic, just really cute personality wise.
Mhm.
And then it came out as gay, and he wrote a book, and I think he's done a lot towards changing minds and changing people's hearts towards the gay
Mhm.
community. But he is very, very adamant about staying a part of the church. And he
Mhm.
actually um, he did a podcast for a while, and then he met a man, and they just fell crazy, head over heels in love, and got
Mhm.
married. And he and Charlie stayed a member of the church right up to the time that he got married. And I'm actually not sure if he was excommunicated. I don't think that he has been excommunicated, but
I was
he
gonna
couldn't be married
ask,
in the temple.
is that still like, because I know this all happened post me leaving the church, but I know that they came out with that thing around 2016, 2017 that said that like
I think it was 15.
if you are married to someone of the same gender,
Hmm.
that that is an
Yeah.
excommunicable offense. Is
Yeah.
that still true?
They walked big parts of it back. I'm not sure if they still have to be excommunicated, because I don't think that he is. I don't think
Okay.
that he has been excommunicated. But that's what this video is about. Okay.
So I watched it. It's basically a very short video. He's talking about how he moved into a new ward and how he sat down with his husband and the bishop and they discussed like how to integrate into the ward. And he talks about like he it's very concise. It's a great video, but three things that the bishop did that were helpful to him and that were helpful to integrating. And he talks about how like the bishop was like, let's both read over the policies to see what is and isn't correct right now and making sure that we're not following any outdated policies. And then also just how his bishop welcomed him and approached it with a lot of love. And the thing that I like that he said is the bishop was like, I want to make sure that I know how to make as many of the blessings of the gospel available to you.
Hmm.
Thought that was really sweet. I will say my ex-Mormon take is that a straight couple moving into a ward wouldn't have to do that, wouldn't have to sit down
Yeah.
and discuss. how do we follow the rules the right way, And I think that it's great that there are people in the church that want to make space
Yeah.
for the queer community. And I am going to caveat that with saying, I think that the space that is made for them isn't blanketed for every member of the queer community. I think that gay couples are more accepted than like transgender people
Mhm.
or people who are asexual and choose not to get married or things like that. I think that
Yeah.
the approach and the level of acceptance is different.
Yeah. Well, and it's
Um,
different from place to place, right?
yeah,
Because we talk about Bishop Roulette and also Word
yeah,
Roulette, but that it just depends on the attitudes of the people. What I really liked about it was that um, it was a good example of like, okay, what can we do in this situation? If somebody wants to, because I mean, I think to your point, like the easy answer is just leave the church, right?
yeah,
But there are people who don't want to, who want to still be
yeah.
included in the church, and they should be allowed. That's valid. That's a valid life decision for them.
Hmm.
They get to make that choice. And if they are making that choice, what can we do in that situation to make it a better experience for them?
Yeah,
And to serve them and love them as Christ would love them. And I think
yeah,
that that was such a great example of that.
yeah. Um, we also for this, like discussion, we both listened to David Archuleta's interview with John Dillon.
Right.
And something that I took from that kind of applied to this was like he was talking about how change in the church kind of happens when the old generation dies off and when we're not
Hmm.
trying to assimilate to previous beliefs or even other like major Christian religions believe. Um, then the change can happen. And I do like seeing that change happen. Like I do think
Hmm.
that this is how it happens. Like
Hmm.
you said, like it's very nice to hear from a gay couple coming into a ward, hey, this was helpful to me. This is something that like if you are a bishop of a ward, you could implement or you could try.
Right.
And I think
Right.
people do really well because sometimes you're like, I want to love you. I don't know how to love you. How is the best way to love you? And it's the more concrete examples you can give of that, the better, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. I just really appreciated that. Watching other people's experiences on social media has been a really useful tool for me, right?
Yeah.
I remember coming to you actually not real long ago and saying, I can kind of understand the gay thing, and I've known gay people and accepted gay people and loved
Hmm.
gay people, and but the trans thing is still uncomfortable to me. And that was your suggestion, was follow some trans people on Instagram and see.
Yeah. I love that you remember that because that was probably 4 years ago now. I remember
Was it?
specifically because it was also, we were having discussions around JK Rowling and around like
Right.
the turf movement. And that's something that I learned in college, like one of my communication courses that really stuck out to me. It's one of those things that you're like, that seems obvious, but it took really taking that information in. But it was saying, good communication doesn't happen when you say, I think that I have the best view of this situation. It's when you say,
Hmm.
I think that you have a different view and I'm going to listen to your experiences of that view,
Yes.
right? I will never have the experience of a gay man.
Right.
I just never will.
Mm.
So all I can
Or a
do
trans
is
person.
listen. Yeah. All I can do is listen to them and say, I believe you that that is what you experience.
Yeah. And that has been huge. That has been really huge
Hmm.
for me. There were several trans people online on Instagram that I followed, and just really delightful, lovely people,
Hmm.
and that helped me so much to change how I felt about that. And it's interesting too because we're kind of warned in the church not to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Say more.
Well, just recently, President Oakes gave a talk, and I really went back and studied it because what came out, the opinion of what a lot of people said on social media was President Oakes is telling us not to talk to people who don't believe. And that is a huge narrative that we have, right? Is to stay away from things like that. So I pulled up his talk just because I really wanted to hear exactly what he was saying.
Yeah.
So this is what he said about it. He said, A way to draw closer to our Savior is to associate with other believers. This includes discussions with trusted associates, local church members, and other faithful friends. He said, remember, to survive spiritually, you need the constant influence of the Holy Ghost, and an abundance of speculation and false information in podcasts and on social media surrounds us. Some may protest or question the truth of church doctrine without knowing or even understanding the fullness of that doctrine. Don't be persuaded by false or inaccurate information. Discuss your concerns with faithful, well-informed friends, and always take those concerns to the Lord. And then he told this story. He said, I want to share this experience of a Y Stake president here on this campus, which is BYU campus. He was approached by a young man in his stake who admired him and asked him to mentor him in his business. And after a few weeks, the young man confided, I should share with you that I have decided to step away from the church I no longer believe. The surprised stake president immediately began to share his profound testimony of the gospel that had brought him so much joy, peace, and inspiration. The young man sat stunned, staring back at the stake president with tears in his eyes. He said, I have not heard anyone speak like that in months. I have been hanging out with friends who don't believe.
Mm.
I say to all of you, as that white stake president said to this young man, seek friends and associates who are striving to follow the Lord, friends and associates with whom you can fill the Spirit and with whom you can reinforce your faith. Surround yourself with people who believe. So, did you want to react? React.
Yeah. I
Okay.
mean, okay.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to be snarky. It is very interesting of him to frame leaving the church as a desire to not follow the Lord, right? Because I think that the church does some things that aren't in line with Jesus Christ's teaching, if that's who they're talking about when they say the Lord. And I think that Jesus Christ actually like never spoke on being gay. I think actually only modern day prophets have cared about that. And there's one chapter in Leviticus that kind of talks about it. So I just find that interesting that that's how it's framed. But I also understand that there are people in the church, people that I know that and love, like you, that are trying to follow the church and follow the church's teachings. And you are that person that they can confide in. You know, if
Mm-hmm.
people are feeling like I need someone who understands my want to stay in the church, but also understands that I am a queer person and I don't want to devalue that,
Mm-hmm.
that you are the person that could go to. Versus me, I think that I left because I felt like I couldn't be all of the values that I wanted to while I was in the church.
Yeah. Well, I mean, reading over it for me, I was just kind of looking at it in a way of like, okay, because I haven't left the church and I don't want to leave the church. And
Yeah.
so looking at that, to me, it's been very important to listen to other stories. It's been very
Mm-hmm.
important to listen to people that I love and understand
Mm-hmm.
what's going on with them. And it's been very important to listen to experiences of people that this is not working for, to listen to trans people online and to listen to gay people online and to listen to their experiences and understand better. But I also do still surround myself with people who believe, right? I still go to church and I
Mm-hmm.
still talk to mostly people who are members of the church. Like I don't feel like I'm not following that counsel at all. Like
Yeah.
so from that vantage point, like I don't think he's saying don't listen to other people. Like there wasn't anything in there that said don't listen to friends that are out of the church.
Mm-hmm.
But it sounded more to me like he was saying if you read the words specifically, there's no place in there that says don't listen to friends and family who have left the
Mm-hmm.
church. He does say that there's a lot of false information on podcasts and online, which is
Mm-hmm.
probably true. I think it's interesting because he's saying false because to me it's just different perspectives, right? I don't
Yeah.
think that there's a lot of people that are actually just flat out lying online
About the church. When
about
it
the
comes
church.
to the church, there's not a lot of people flat out lying. I do think it's good counsel in general to say, hey, there's a lot of misinformation
Sure.
online.
Right,
Be
that's true.
careful.
Because yeah, we are living in a really weird time. But I do think that there's a lot of different perspectives online.
Hmm.
And I think that characterizing that as just false is not necessarily the best way of
Hmm.
characterizing it. So I just think that that's like we kind of hear what we think we're going to hear, not only just what we want to hear, but what we think we're going to hear. So I
Hmm.
think it's easy for people to take that and be like, oh, he's telling us not to talk to our friends that have left the church. And
Hmm.
I don't think that was exactly what he was saying. For me, the best course of action has been to listen to both sides of it,
Hmm.
right? To listen to what's going on in the church and what the prophets are saying in the church, and also to listen to what's going on with people that are struggling with harder things. So,
Yeah. Well, and I think so. This started with David Archuleta, who I was a big fan of as a
right.
child, right?
We went and
But
saw
like I
him,
remember,
remember? That was
I
so
know we
fun.
went and saw him. That was my first concert, and you got me those
Yeah.
tickets for Christmas. I remember. But when I heard him speak about coming out and leaving the church, like
Hmm.
because those happened separately, he was talking to his mom and he was talking about how he left, and his mom then left the church and said, "Why would I be someplace where my child is not welcome?" And I think
Yeah.
that what we're kind of saying here is I can understand both perspectives, and it's important to understand both perspectives. Is that there are queer people that are fed up and said, I don't want to fight the fight of
Yeah.
carving a space out for the church. It's not necessary for me to follow my faith.
Yeah.
I can do that outside of the church. And they step away or their parents step away. And there are cases like Charlie Bird where you stay in the church and he has a platform where he can discuss what is helpful to him and you continue to carve out that space for
Yeah.
you and practice in a way that makes you feel comfortable. And then there are also cases like our family where people have left the church because they don't feel like there's space for them. But
Hmm.
I don't feel like you staying in the church is because you're staying with a place where your kids aren't welcome. I think that you are practicing your faith the best that you can and also trying to make it a place where if one person can help carve out a space for people that are like your children, you're going to do that.
Yeah. Well, there was one other account that I came across recently that I think is so interesting, and it is a gay person in the church who is saying that his point of view is that it's not helpful to him for people to say that the church might change someday because it's more helpful for him to just support him in the life that he's choosing to live, which is,
Mhm.
being in a marriage with a woman. So I just think, I guess the point that I was trying to make is just there's a lot of different ways to do this life, right? And there's a lot of
Mhm.
different choices to make. And I think our best way of doing it is just not telling everybody else how to live, right? Not telling everybody else what they should be doing, right?
Mhm.
Like the idea of the marketplace of ideas where
Mhm.
we all, you know, I'm doing this because this is what I think, and tell me about what you think, and tell me about how you choose to live your life. And
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
think that, that's probably the way that we can most freely make our choices is by just seeing different ways of being and choosing intelligently and with our hearts, what we think
Mhm.
is the best thing to do. And having
Mhm.
faith in each other that you're going to live the best way that you know how.
Mhm.
And then on top of that, we also have to give each other a lot of grace because we screw it up a lot along the way too. So,
Yeah, that's
anyways,
so fair. So, well, I think we agree on that. I think that we agree on under understanding where people are coming from, taking the time to listen, and then
hmm,
just like you said, having faith that they're going to do what they think is best with that.
yeah. And to me, on top of that, there's a faith in God, that God
Mhm.
loves all of their children,
Yeah.
and that they care about their moral education and the good things that they're doing. And I just don't believe that our heavenly parents are ever going to give up on any of us. I just believe that they're just watching us kind of learn things and celebrating all of the good that we do, um, and probably hurting when we hurt, watching us learn and grow and develop and become better as we go.
Yeah. I guess if I believed in gods, that sounds better.
All
But
right. Well, we better wrap this up, but thank you for always having these discussions with me. It's always interesting.
yeah. Thank you for always listening. And, I love talking to you. And I appreciate that you remember or took advice that I gave you 4 years ago. I
Oh,
remember it.
I have, you've given me a lot of really good advice, and I really appreciate it. I've learned a lot from you. I've probably learned more from you than you've learned from me in our
That's
lifetime.
not
So,
true. But
well,
at least it can go both ways.
yeah. Okay.
I love you.
I love you. Talk soon.